Well, g'day and welcome to this video. One out of hundreds now that are on my YouTube page, which people ask me about sometimes, which is called Welcome. No, it's not called Welcome. It's called Awaken Now. And my dear friend and contemporary in awakening, Tyna Tyler, Tyna Tyler, who lives in Los Angeles, actually is doing a very nice job of keeping that page updated and running, and I don't really know what she does with it, but she does all the stuff, all the technical bits. So I wanted to make this video with the idea of healing in mind, the idea of the basics, so that if you're watching it, you can begin to apply the principles of what you learn here on this video to the particulars of your life, the situations you find yourself in, to affect changes in the outcomes of those situations that may not be, let's say, the changes that you want, but will be the changes that will be to your greater benefit. So in saying that, the understanding of what the greater benefit is will help you a long way in learning to recognize the range or the nature of choice when it comes to making decisions. Because the two things you're always choosing for as someone who's participating in a spiritual curriculum, you're either choosing for the world or you're choosing for God or universal mind or higher consciousness, whatever you want to call that, higher mind, it doesn't really matter. The source of all creation, perhaps. So I wanted to start off, I've always wanted to do one of those videos, like a welcome video. It's like welcome to the world, you know, and when I was younger, I used to wonder why nobody gives you a little book or something when you first come here when you're a child, and the book of the world or something. And of course, as an adult, some of you may be aware of the Urantia book, which is the book of the earth, and very difficult to get into and very difficult to make sense of unless you've actually had a few experiences along the way of something other than the temporal nature of life. But I always thought a little book would be handy, a little handbook, so you can make sense of not only why you're here, but the purpose that you have for being here, you know, or how you got here, but the purpose that you have for being here, and all of that sort of thing, because it's very easy to get roped into getting a job and getting married and buying into the dream within the dream of being one of these body things. So this little video looks at those questions in probably fairly shallowly, I suppose, because the subject itself is extremely broad, and by necessity, because it has to take into account all of the isms of the human condition. But once you get a grip on it, once you understand the nature of spiritual transformational spiritual learning, it becomes extremely simple. It gets easier as you go along. I have made a lot of these videos historically, which some of you will know why I'm laughing about that term. But I think for most people, spirituality comes as a bit of a shock to the system. Not only does it often get confused with religion, and I often have people tell me that they have trouble with the God word and things like that, and that's really too bad. I can't do anything about that for you. You're either ready for it or you're not. But when you are ready, it often comes as a shock to the system to learn that everything you once thought about everything is completely wrong. So, but as you learn that, you're not the first one to learn it, and you won't be the last. And I remember the shock to my system in learning it was horrific, and that was after revelation, after enlightenment of my mind, when I was brought to bear the full focus of my attention on the conundrum I now found myself in, having just experienced reality unfettered and untethered, and then finding myself back in the world in this limited kind of experience of being human. And it wasn't a great place to be in, I'll put it that way. It wasn't fantastic. There was many moments where there was a deep concern for my sanity, but I realized on one hand that I had just experienced what total sanity was, reality, and on the other hand, finding myself back in the opposite of that, this place, this physical, temporary place, which on the other hand represents unreality, or not true reality. It was very difficult to bridge the gap, and of course I've never been able to bridge the gap. It's impossible. All you can do is narrow the gap right down to the point where you make the decision at which altar you're going to serve, or at which, from which perspective you're going to make the decision how to proceed on from there. So I've probably just given the game away by telling you that the world is not reality, or not your reality. Your true reality is eternal. Your true reality is formless and is lasts forever and is all-encompassing. And that's the true nature of what you are as spirit, and of course the body just being the vessel. Most people are quite familiar with that, especially people on spiritual... Oh, just got bit by something. Welcome to Australia. People on a spiritual path will be more than aware. It's a very common encounterance, the concept that you're not the body, that you are the spirit, and the body is your vehicle for learning. It's your vessel, and you lay it down at the end when you're done with it. However, it's a good word, isn't it? However, it's not as easy as that. Most people are also kind of familiar with the idea that life presents them with lessons or challenges or all these sorts of things. And some people I meet are even familiar with the idea that the life here on earth is the learning of the universal curriculum, and that we're about learning universal lessons so that we can, when we graduate, so that we can fit in to a higher level of experience of still not life, still not truth, still not our true reality, but a less dense form of association going forward in the journey of the soul. The experience that we're here learning on earth is very, very simple. Prior to the uncovering or the discovery of any spiritual truth, you are probably, like I once was, you're probably completely ignorant of why you're here and what it's all about. So very simply, you're here because you're having the experience of being separate from everyone and everything, including me, and I have to speak separately to be able to offer that, just as Jesus had to speak separately to his disciples and listeners many years ago, even though in his own mind he knew that that was the falsity of his situation, just as every other prophet has had to speak separately. So if you're somebody who has entertained a lot of meditative effort with your own spiritual journey, and you understand that there's nobody to speak to and all of that sort of thing, then there's no need for you to write that in the comments on this video. Sit back and have a cup of tea and put the television on, just watch Gilligan's Island or something else. It's all the same. So the world is an illusion, the world is a dream, and every culture in the world, bar the Western one, the Western mindset tends to have this very far-fetched idea of the meaning of life and everything as presented through Orthodox Christianity and the interpretation of Scripture according to that, which I don't want to get into, but if that's your deal, that's fine. It's not what I'm talking about. But the Australian Aboriginals, who in my reckoning are one of the oldest civilizations on the planet, let's say, or representing that anyway, will have no problem in telling you that the world is the dream, the Maya or the illusion, and they're walking, they're dreaming, and everything is the dream time. And same with Hindus, same with Sufis, same with Buddhists, although everybody puts it differently, expressing in, how would I put it? It's expressing in a universal kind of way that the outward world, the world we see with our eyes and experience with our senses, is nothing more than a projection of the mind that believes in the foundationary idea of the experience itself, which is separation from source, separation from everyone and everything, and the world being the second part of that experience, the reparative part of it, is dedicated to healing. But because you have free will, and by free will it was that you chose to entertain the idea, let's say, of separation, so must it be by your own free will that you entertain the idea of healing or of unity or oneness. And to that end, this video is dedicated to teaching you then how to use the same situations you find yourself in, where you thought you were surrounded by other people and other things and things that were separate from you somehow and didn't have any bearing on you, to your advantage, wherein you can learn that you are not separate from those people, situations or events, and that actually, if you're willing to take a leap of faith and step up, those same situations and events that you find yourself in are going to be very handy to you to help you establish and discover and establish a lasting sense of inner peace, which will guide you through meditative effort and prayerful effort to a singular place of focus, a singular place of inner listening in your own consciousness, wherein you will, how do I talk about this? You will find yourself at the very, very threshold or the very limit of your conscious association with yourself, at a kind of a jumping off point. Now, just to backtrack a little regarding that, all of this stuff is helpful if I can get it in the right sort of way that you can hear it. But the average, and I'm just going to put everybody in the same bucket here for a second, the average human being has this idea of what it is to be normal and what it means to fit in and all of this sort of stuff, and spends most of its life within a narrow band of frequency, attempting to maintain what they call balance within that framework, which of course is completely nonsense, because as my friend and contemporary in this endeavour, Charles Anderson, my teacher's teacher, would have once said, and did once say, or didn't once say, there's nothing more unstable than the notion of balance. Think about that. So it's not about balance, and if you think it is, good luck with that. I'm not here to try and tell you you're wrong or correct you. I'm just here to assert what it is that I know to be the truth for me, and if you find something in it, fantastic. So there's nothing more unstable than a lifestyle where you have to constantly check yourself to stay in balance so you can stay within the norms of being sane or being human. 1 in 4 people has a mental condition on the planet. And you're probably looking at me right now thinking I'm like all of the 4 together. And you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. I'm completely admitting to my total insanity, which is where you have to go in this spiritual endeavour. So it gets to a point, though, when you're trying to fit in and trying to be normal, where that kind of lifestyle and that kind of participation with life reaches a threshold and you start to question, isn't there more to life than this, and all of these sorts of things. And you'll either pursue those questions or you'll surrender to the normalcy of what you think life is and forget about those questions and just go and buy yourself a 6-foot deep hole in the ground somewhere in a tombstone to all of that kind of stuff. And we'll see you around next time in the next video. It might look completely different, but I'll be representing this teaching, this universal idea through another avatar. However, if you are someone who questions life at some point and you decide that you're done with your white sneakers and your socks and your walk socks and your shorts pulled up high with a belt and all of those security kind of clothes that people wear, and yes, I've been there, done that. You will probably start to entertain other ideas. You'll look around for other things. And because your mind is making your experience for you, it's like you will receive what it is that you want to manifest. And if you're manifesting an opening for new possibilities and the expansion of the potential of your human character, the universe will give it to you, up to the point where you realize that you can't expand it anymore, because you're either going to go one side down the rabbit hole into total darkness and insanity and just lose the plot, or you're going to go to the other side where you become like the best person you can possibly be, and rise above all other people and rule the world, and you know how everyone should live, like politicians and other people like that. And but neither of those perspectives on life are true. None of it is. It's all a dream. And you can either be the most incredibly aloof spiritual person, or you can be a complete disaster. It doesn't matter. The truth of you is beyond reason, beyond reckoning, beyond understanding. You have to experience it for yourself. And even listening to this video is only going to bring you back again and again to the point where you put your finger on your own nose with your own proclamation that, hang on a minute, the truth is within me, as Jesus said, as David is telling me now. And that's where I find it, not out there in the world, not in the mastery of the identity around my avatar and being able to control things and make my life better on planet Earth. It's got nothing to do with that whatsoever. Sorry to shatter that illusion for you, but that's why we're here. So the same situations that you find yourself in at work, at home, with your spouse, with your kids, with your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, those things are going to bring up triggers. They're going to bring up anxiety, stress, anything that's not peaceful for you, right? And that's where the opportunity for healing lies. That's where the idea of looking at the things that bind you to the world is, right? The blocks to love's awareness, you could say. The old script of separation, the story of I don't know, what's it all about, is there a God, all of that provides you with lots of opportunities to perpetuate that story and remain in ignorance. In fact, everything, without spiritual inquiry, everything perpetuates your ignorance and keeps you in the dark until the time you die, which is the whole point and purpose of that voice in your head, that ego that tells you what to do, how to respond, what to say. And I should tell you straight up front that voice is not your friend. The ego is not your friend. It's not your enemy either, but it's definitely not your friend. It actually doesn't exist. It only seems to perpetuate itself because you insist on listening to it and taking its counsel. And part of the spiritual journey, of course, is to learn to not listen, just to ignore, refuse to listen to that voice, and wait instead and listen for a higher form of counsel that perhaps you've heard it before, perhaps you've never heard it before, but we'll call it the voice for God, the Holy Spirit, that will guide you in a set of decision-making experiences that will bring to you different outcomes in the same familiar situations that you find yourself in now. And that might sound like a lot to believe, and yes, it is a lot to believe. It's going to be a leap of faith, and you're going to have to take a leap of faith at some point, because you do not get out of this dream. You do not awaken from the dream without the miracle. Doesn't matter how many books you read, how many spiritual masters you've followed. It doesn't matter any of that stuff. You're fucked. You're stuck here. You're just totally doomed. And take that on board. Let yourself be totally doomed. There's nothing better than a good dooming. Jesus would have put it that unless you hate the world, you cannot follow me. Right? So you have to be willing to look open-eyed at the world and see what it is that it represents in all its dichotomy, in all of its plurality and duality. It represents death, or the idea of death, which is an impossibility if life is eternal and life is of God, and God is all-encompassing, meaning there cannot be anything other than life which is eternal. And if life is formless, life is spirit, which is the idea of God in pretty much every, and you'll experience it for yourself, then the idea of form and time and place cannot possibly exist other than in a dream. And if you want to call that a virtual reality, a computer simulation, a hologram, whatever it is, doesn't matter, as long as you take it on board that life is eternal, and what's not eternal isn't life, right? Therein giving you a new premise, a new action point to learn to make decisions from, with regards to how it is that you respond to the figures in your dream, the figures in your experience, in your simulation. When they come to you telling you things and triggering you and activating you, you're either going to react in the same old script, the same old way that you always have, which is what you've learnt since coming here, because nobody gave you a little book at the beginning, or you're going to take on board the application of one of your spiritual principles and put it into play in that same situation and see what happens. Now, recognizing, and let's put it this way, not that there's an everyone, it's just keeping my finger on my nose here. I am the learner. I am the teacher and the learner. Physician, heal thyself. But recognizing for a moment in the temporary nature of healing, in the transitionary phase of learning and teaching, recognizing that we're all here, let's say, all here. We are all here. I'm speaking dualistically. We're all here on our own learning journey, at our own pace, etc., etc., etc. So the principles then involved in any meeting with another version of myself is going to be one wherein I would want to recognize the divine nature of that being, and not buy into the previous drama that I had given them by judging and projecting out there my unwanted denial, my unwanted story of separation onto them, in an attempt to verify myself in this place that doesn't actually exist and that keeps me in that loop. So I look at my brother out there, and previously where I would have judged, now I forgive. Previously where I would have had an expectation, now I release that chain from around my brother's neck. I learn tolerance and patience in the understanding that we're all learning at our own pace. And just because I seem to think that it should look a certain way doesn't mean that it should look a certain way. Hard lesson learned sometimes. And there's a whole bunch of spiritual principles, and it's like finding the right tool for the job. It's like you'll find yourself in a situation and you might have to step back for a second, and hopefully you will step back for a second, and you'll ask yourself, what do I do in this situation, Lord? Right? You ask your higher mind. It's still you. God is you. God is everything. That means it's you as well. What do I do in this situation? And you allow yourself to be guided with regard to how it is you're to proceed, and you'll see how it is that how you proceed represents one of the principles that allows you to release the trigger, or release that emotional package, that energy within you that maintains the story and maintains the verification, if you like, of the old way of seeing, so that you can create within yourself a new space, an open space, where there is not only the recognition that I don't know what I'm doing here, I don't know what anything is, I don't know how to respond to this person, situation or event, leaving it open, but there is the opportunity then for something of a divine nature to enter into that situation and show you the truth of yourself and your brother, right, or the situation as it is. Much in the same way, and there's always seems to be a bit of a confrontation, a personal confrontation. There kind of has to be, because you have to be aware of the shifts and the changes that you're going to be going through and are going through, including now watching this video. But it's very much akin to, if you can imagine a group of friends in a restaurant who all meet up at a certain time and place for dinner, and they're sitting around and whatever, talking. All of a sudden the talk runs out and they've got nothing to say, and there's that pregnant pause. There's that moment where everybody starts to panic and the silence becomes a little bit too long, and everybody's thinking, shit, we've got to say something. Somebody's got to break this silence, because like, it's uncomfortable. And you might think, maybe we'll talk about the weather, and then you tell yourself, no, don't talk about the weather. That's stupid. That's only verifying the fact I've got nothing else better to talk about. I'm supposed to be an interesting person, capable and advanced and, in the world, blah, 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 blah. According to my identity that I ascribe to myself. And but there becomes this pause, this uncomfortableness, and it's like, surrender to it. Allow that uncomfortableness to be there for a moment. And ask within it, help me, Spirit, help me, Holy Spirit, help me, God, help me, whatever you want to ask help of from your higher, non-temporal guidance, and act upon it when it comes. Act upon that information and that guidance when it comes, and you'll see the difference that becomes of the situation. Right? Perhaps you won't. It won't fall upon your own shoulders to have to break the silence. Maybe someone else will do it. Maybe someone will start talking about how funny it is that there's a big silence when you're all such academic and wonderfully competent people and all of that, and what's wrong with us all. Have a good laugh at yourselves. And that's the whole point of it, is having a good laugh at yourself. So relationships are learning tools, right? You're learning that it's better to give than receive. You're learning about tolerance and patience. You're learning about forgiveness and charity. You're learning about love, unconditional love, not special love. You're learning all sorts of lessons in the curriculum of life that take you from the ignoramus that you are when you come here, and I can put my finger on my nose for that one, take you from that place of ignorance where you don't really know anything, you just make it up as you go along, and develop better weapons to defend yourself against the imagination that you have projected out there onto someone else, who obviously is going to want to fulfill their part, because that's what you're asking when you project, someone to fulfill that part and show you back what it is that you're denying. But you're going to learn all of these things, and you'll have the choice in the moment where you realize it's a learning opportunity. You'll have the choice before you of which camp you're going to serve. Love or fear, love or fear. And love, remember, is eternal, not love that some I love and some I don't love. So, if you fail in a lesson, it will return to you. A lesson repeats until it's learned, and what you resist persists. And if you persist too much, it's going to build up momentum as it comes around each time, because it will be loaded again with the subliminal and subconscious recognition that you were fearful to deal with it last time miraculously, and you pushed it away. It's going to have that extra push. Every time it comes back, it's like it gets harder to push down, because what the bloody hell, why does this keep happening to me? I can't deal with this anymore. Oh, heart attack, and away you go and reincarnate back again. And so a lesson repeats until it's learned. And in that regard, it's very helpful to make notice of the emotional response you have in that lesson. There's that person again, always makes me feel this way or that way, and not this situation again that makes me cringy or whatever it is. My daughter uses that word nowadays, cringy. I don't think we had it when I was her age. We had probably creepy or something, I don't know. But you get the idea, right? So it's just emotional tags, labels and things. We like to label everything and pigeonhole everything so we can have these synapse connections that reference where we're at and what we're about as we validate our self-identity in the dream until the point where we're sick and tired of doing that, because it's hard work. I'm exhausted. I've been judging everyone and everything all day, trying to maintain who I am as this competent thing, and I'm exhausted. I just need a drink and leave me alone. I'm going to bed. I know the story. It's a funny thing. There's a line in A Course in Miracles. If you haven't heard of A Course in Miracles, jump online and order yourself a copy. A Course in Miracles. It's not hard. A Course in Miracles. About 800, 900 pages of text and 365 lessons, one every day for a whole year. Get cracking. You'll find plenty about it online too, including more videos like this on my page and the pages of plenty of other people who will not lead you astray and who will not charge you exorbitant, ridiculous amounts of money for their pocket lining conferences and meetups and seminars and things like that. This is a free curriculum. It's completely free, and if you want a copy of A Course in Miracles, drop me a line and I will get you a copy out there for free. But I'm sure most of you can afford the $25 the $25 bill online, which will be a lot easier. I don't have much time left to be running to the post office all the time these days. But I do have 3 or 4 box loads of the books here at present, which actually 2 of those are going out in a couple of weeks. They're going out to other places. Also, Annie Liley, Liley, on my Facebook page. And my Facebook page is Dave, D-A-V-E, Phare, P-H-A-R-E. You can add me on Facebook if you want to. I'm probably not going to be on Facebook for much longer. I'm looking at either getting off there or starting a new page or doing, I don't know. Really, it feels like it's done for me, and I'm not interested in maintaining followers or friends or any of that sort of nonsense, that gets presented on there as an idea of how well I'm doing or establishing my credentiality by how many likes I get or anything like that. But it's just the nature of the beast. So, all right, well, I hope that's been helpful. Keep your finger on your nose. So there's 2 premises. I'll just finish with this. There's 2 premises for any true spiritual path. They're all the same. Doesn't matter how they're presented, Buddhism, Hinduism, Sufism, or I don't know what you call A Course in Miracles-ism. Proper Christianity-ism. I don't even want to call it Christianity because Jesus wasn't a Christian. It's just universal curriculum. But the 2 premises are, I'm responsible for everything I see, feel, hear, smell, touch, taste. Whatever happens to me, I'm responsible. It does not matter. I'm the dreamer of my dreamer, and I wouldn't be aware of anything unless it was a thought in my head. Right? And the other one is that time is not sequential. There's no such thing as the past or the future. There's only here and now. Om. Peace.